Thank
Um,
you.
But
Okay.
great to see you all. Sorry I'm not there.
No, thank you.
Good morning. Okay, I'd like to call our meeting to order. Aloha kako.
Aloha.
This is the meeting of the Public Land Trust Working Group. Let the record reflect that it is Wednesday, February 21, 2024, and the time is 8:32. We are recording this remote meeting held by interactive conference technology. The members present in today's meeting are Sherry Broder, Don Chang, Ryan Kanakaole, Louis Soliveria, and myself, Hulu Lindsay. Administrative and technical support are provided by Stacy Ferreira, Everett Ota, Amber Kalua, and Kevin Chalk. First on our agenda is Review Act 304, Session Laws of Hawaii, 1990, and court decisions and history of payments of pro rata share of airport revenues to OHA. Amber, is anyone signed up to speak on this item?
No.
Okay, members, this item is open for discussion. Sherry?
Okay, well, back when John Wahey was governor, everybody came to an agreement, and it was in Act 329. And so even though that was 1990, some aspects of it the state continues to use. And really, in a way, the state is even continuing to use that portion of Act 329, which awarded OHA the airport revenues. So, as you know, Dawn, the state uses the sovereign proprietary definitions. Okay, those were agreed upon as part of the package deal in Act 329. So rather than reinventing the wheel, I think it might be worthwhile for us to take another look at Act 329. Now, I know that because the federal government then went on to pass the Airport Forgiveness Act, they didn't, the law was struck down, but it's still, to the extent that it helps the state does continue to utilize the definitions that were set forth as to which funds they didn't have to pay from. And at the end of the day, that's why we did this chart, just to show that airport revenues have been awarded. Now, of course, we know that the agencies don't want to pay any more than what they already are. And so, in fact, what's happened is the state's paid in different ways, in settlements with OHA. So either through general funds or, for instance, the Act 15, which is kaka'ako. So those are ways that the state has made up the difference.
Right.
So I just think it's a really, the solution may be actually right in front of us. And so I asked, Everett knows everything. And so I asked him to come. Yeah, he knows everything. So I wanted him to come.
Okay.
And we worked on that chart that you have now
Helpful.
years
Thank
ago
you.
when Koa Kalukui was here, Everett, Koa, and I.
Mhm.
And Bianca, she helped us on the airport revenues. So Bianca Isaki, I don't know if you know her.
Yep.
But
She sued me a couple of times.
did she? Okay. Well, not you. Yes, you? No, not you. You've been on the opposite side.
I have great aloha for Bianca.
Okay.
I'm just teasing, but yeah, no,
All
but
right.
there has been several.
Well, yeah, I
lawsuits,
hope
but
you don't do that to me when my name comes up.
I want to introduce Everett Otai.
Thank you.
Okay.
To mention that he was part of our meeting,
Very good.
and thank you for being with us this morning, Everett.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, and then I just have one last thing to say. Okay, which is that Judge Healy, ruled that OHA was entitled to not just the 20% from the duty-free shops, but also the 20% from the hospital revenue and the public housing development and rent, and also was entitled to interest on the past due. So even though the Hawaii Supreme Court did strike down the law because of the Airport Forgiveness Act, nonetheless, the court never, said that upheld his ruling in the sense that it said that OHA would have been entitled to the 20%, but for the Airport Revenue Act. So just to show how I think the state has recognized that, but has looked to other avenues to pay, including general funds or land.
So before we go to Everett, I have a question. Is there a running total for the airport revenue that we haven't gotten paid for? When was the last time we got paid for that? And have we been running it along with the 20% of the other resources that's owed us from the different departments?
So I think, Chair Lindsay, to your question, the airport, the receipts generated from the airports have not been transferred since directly from the airports, basically since Governor Cayetano ceased those payments, right, as provided on the chart, following well, an initial determination by the U.S. Department of Transportation that the Airport Improvement Act, I know it's AIA, prevented the diversion of airport receipts to non-airport purposes. So pretty much since that point, we haven't been receiving funds directly from the airports. But as the chart shows that's provided in the packet, a summary of PLT payments, trust net payments to OHA, as well as the the particular call outs for the airports. Those funds have been made up from other sources, I think like Sherry mentioned, and kind of in amounts that have kind of varied over the years. So they haven't specifically called out a certain amount or that's being tracked necessarily, but it's kind of embedded into the amounts that the state has been transferring to OHA and PLT payments, for the majority of time. Actually, this last act, the Act 226, was the first time it wasn't specifically called out, in terms of a contribution from the airports. But I think that was just kind of the difference in how this most recent PLT bill was settled on for the amount. So what we do have, though, is the reports, that DLNR compiles based on information provided by the agencies, including DOT airports. And what we found in our previous financial review that looked at how the agencies were calculating these amounts or tracking these amounts, what our independent analysts found was that the airports by and large did track their receipts well, and accounted for them, right? It's just they hadn't transferred any of those receipts to OHA, again, because of the restrictions under the Airports Improvement Act and the Forgiveness Act. So if we go back to the actual reporting, at least based on this NNK report, I think we can say that, those receipts are actually being tracked well by the airports. And what we've seen, and that's in the other parts of the attachments that were provided, is that those receipts have increased substantially, even since the last NNK report. So the last NNK report, which was based on FY16 numbers, showed gross receipts in the amount of approximately 73 million, from these sources that have traditionally or historically contributed to OHA's PLT payments from airport sources. And that amount of receipts has increased per the DOT airports reporting, and is now at 130 million, 131 million about as of the last fiscal year. So if we go back through the fiscal years, we can generally say that, well, what is the amounts that have been, generated from the airports? That gives us a pretty good estimation. And then that could be the basis for saying that, the state needs to make up these amounts from other sources.
Can I ask a follow-up question from your Chair Lindsay's? And I apologize, I wasn't, haven't been part of the previous negotiations or discussions or settlement discussions on this matter. So when Sherry and you mentioned this difference has been made up in others, for example, settlements or so is that the basis for the settlement, for example, the $200 million in the Kaka'ako, is the basis for that amount what the state would have otherwise been required to pay, including DOT's revenue? If we had, because you said they track it, so is that settlement based upon
It's included.
included in
200
what,
million.
in what DOT would have transferred?
So yes, it was a
Okay,
component
okay.
of it as part of the acting
Yeah.
settlement.
Okay,
That was
okay,
very clear, that
Okay.
act where we had to sign off.
okay,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
So, that was a component of it, or it was factored into that overall calculation. Of course, I think with other,
okay.
sources of underpayment.
Okay. So
yeah.
like Sherry had indicated, the state has acknowledged
Mhm.
that payments from
Other
airport
sources.
revenue and other sources are entitled to OHA, notwithstanding the annual amount, but the settlements reflect the broader state's obligation to pay
Mhm.
more than what we are annually paying. Okay, is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
it's been,
okay.
it has, the airport revenues have been a component of those prior
Okay.
payment amounts,
Settlements.
as
Okay.
well as the
Yeah.
lump sum settlements that have also come, including Kaka'ako.
Okay,
So from 2012, when we accepted Kaka'ako Makai, it's accumulated again.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
So post 2012, you have, our annual reports do track what airport, and that's the basis for your calculations here then.
Yes, so those actually come straight from the Act
Annual report,
78.
okay.
The annual reports that deal in our assembled.
So-
So those are just the excerpts for the
Okay,
airports
I
from
see.
from fiscal year 16 as well as fiscal year 23.
So the 73 was as of the 2016 report, is that the N and K? Or is that
It's the
set?
same year as the
Oh,
NNK
okay.
report,
Yeah.
so NNK, when they did their financial
Yes.
review, they looked at what the agencies reported,
Okay,
and then they went into the actual agencies'
I see.
books and, background
Yeah.
papers, and kind of did an independent calculation,
Okay.
of sources that were subject to OHA's, there were PLT parcels or other revenue sources
see.
that were subject, or have been subject to OHA's share.
and the 2023, the second page,
Mhm.
the $130 million, that's a total post, that's a total
Yes. So
since,
so that's just, again, that fiscal year.
okay,
So the way the Act 178 report generally breaks
Right.
down is that the agencies provide an accounting of their receipts generated from
Okay.
PLT sources. They separate those receipts into the total amount collected, the amounts transferred to OHA, and then the amounts retained by the agency. And then, oftentimes deposited in whatever special funds,
Okay.
certainly as DLNR does.
so that's the
And
gross.
of course, so
Okay.
for total receipts from the airport, all of that is kept by the airports.
Okay,
But they're still providing that reporting as per the requirements of Act 178, Section 5.
and the 130 million,
I think
that's the
Louis
gross?
wanna say
Oh, I'm
something.
sorry. Go ahead.
Yes,
Liz.
that's the
Okay.
gross.
So the 20% is off of that.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
okay. Sorry, Louis?
Louis,
Hi, thank you, Everett. Quick question. So I'm looking at the two spreadsheets that Don is talking about right now, the 73 and the 130. That is the yearly amount, is that the cumulative amount?
That's the annual amount.
It's the
that's
annual amount, okay.
reported, for that fiscal year from, in this case, the airports, but this is again taken from the Act 178 reports produced by or published by DLNR each year. So, that information is available for all the agencies. We're just focusing this morning on the airports.
Thank you, Everett.
Welcome. In addition, the Act 178 report for the airports for this fiscal year actually provides a pretty detailed breakdown of where those receipts are generated from. So that's certainly helpful in understanding, how these various, by location or even by the type of revenue generation. It's kind of broken down, and that's something that's more recent by the
Okay.
airports, not something that was provided back in FY16.
Okay, Sherry.
Okay, so just a couple of things. The duty-free shops, what they did is they moved them off ceded lands. The state moved them off the ceded lands. So there would be no calculation for the 20% for OHA. So I think that's just an example of, I think, frustration that Native Hawaiians feel, which is that state's in charge of all the land, right? So the decisions are not up to it. And this is, the kind of thing that's a little,
Yeah, and
you don't have to defend
Okay,
anybody.
I mean,
Okay,
I-
I'm just pointing out,
no, fair enough, fair enough.
I'm just pointing out, I'm still resting on my position that we should go back to Act 304, but I'm just pointing out
okay.
that the state has, at the end of the day, most of the marbles in its court. And so I think I just want to explain what I've been trying to do in the meetings that we've come to, which is I think there's a lot of suspicion in the Native Hawaiian community. And I just want, when we are done, to be able, if we are able to come up with a recommendation, I want us to be able to answer some of the questions that are out there. That's why I keep going on and on about the 50% rule or other things that are going on. So I'm not saying that I'm asking you to change the
Sure,
NLO
sure.
policies,
No,
but I am trying to understand in detail so that
okay.
there will be answers.
Okay.
Okay, so there'll just be a report. We're not gonna, that will put those forward. And so I'm just using the example of the duty-free shops to show, maybe to convince you of why there's some
No.
bad, some suspicion or
And
or lack
I
of trust.
understand. I do understand. I guess I'm also looking at, and I speak on behalf of DLNR primarily. And I guess this is where I would appreciate some help from OHA. We have DLNR, I mean, there are five 5F purposes. The betterment of Native Hawaiians is one of the 5. DLNR, our mission includes, I mean, we also, it's to preserve and protect these resources. So in many instances, we will provide leases for public lands to Ella Masanari gratis, because that's part of our mission. If we can develop stewardship agreements with nonprofits, so we're not charging them fair market value. In many of our lands, we aren't charging fair market value, but it is because we look at fulfilling our mission, the other 4 purposes of the trust as well. And so I think it is a shared responsibility with all of us in clarifying that messaging. And OHA is a great advocate. OHA, you guys do a great job in advocating for the Hawaiian community, the Hawaiian people, your entitlement. But I think that's got to be balanced against the state, who has other trust duties and other responsibilities. So I think it would be helpful if part of that collective messaging that comes out of here is that recognition by OHA that the state has other missions and responsibilities. And I think that would be helpful if OHA shared in that messaging, so that it alleviates some of that mistrust, some of that suspicion.
Okay, well, I did use a DOT example and not a DLNR example, and
yeah,
I
and-
never have
No, and-
criticized
Yes,
DLNR's decisions on charitable
Yeah.
leases. I did suggest maybe you would want to take a look at the $480 a year, but I didn't criticize
Yeah,
it.
well, that's
Okay.
been an increase
I
from
said,
the
look.
35 that were $40 that we used. But
But
likewise,
that's, all right,
you know, we're from dealing DOT, we don't manage them. DOT has their, you know,
Yeah.
their decision-making process. So I
okay,
guess it's just recognizing sort of this mutual, we have responsibilities and,
yeah,
and missions. So I think if the report reflects that, that
Yeah.
would be helpful.
well, okay. Of course, the state budget is what, $15 billion a year, and OHA gets what?
3 million. Oh, you mean of our 20%?
Yeah,
20.5.
20, yeah.
21.5.
Yeah, 21,
21.5.
yeah.
Okay, so just, on all the lands that DLNR has, well, you said
Oh.
97% or 99% were from
And
the Kingdom of Hawaii.
You probably don't want me to go down that track.
All right, let's move
DLNR,
on.
we
I
manage
tried to-
1.3 million acres of
Okay.
land and everything in between, and we get 1% of the state's budget.
Well,
1%.
okay, we disagree with that. You should
Yeah,
get more.
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
but
I'm for,
you're
I
right,
believe you
you're
should
right.
get more. All right,
yeah.
I do.
Look at the state lands. They need more. They need
They
more
need
help.
more.
They
You need
more
maintenance.
help.
Yeah,
You're,
I
you
agree
did.
with
So,
you.
Okay,
so
so
you're right,
moving on.
everything is relative,
All
but
right, so
I-
Senator Noy said at the time they passed the Airport
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness Act that the act should not take away from the state's duty to pay OHA. It's 20%.
Yeah.
So
I
that he
remember
made
that.
a very specific statement to that effect, and I can send that to you if you'd like.
well, it sounds like to a certain extent they have, whether it's been through a settlement
Yeah,
or whether it's been through, so I guess for me, it is, how do we move our responsibilities forward? And while I appreciate, let's double check the inventory, with the PLTIS. In my mind, the real issue is the recommendations that we can make on some of these similarly, like the airports. They have in the past paid, they were part of the settlement. What would be their calculation of 20%?
yeah,
And look at a proposed settlement. I mean, some of these issues
Yeah.
are far beyond us as a working group, but they're policy issues by the legislature.
Mhm.
They have to make that call.
yeah,
And I think our job is to provide them with recommendations.
Yeah.
I do appreciate your desire to have a good foundation, making sure the inventory is accurate. But as you saw, Mahoy's, he says he's only aware of 2 parcels. If you can come forward and tell me what other parcels there may be the 50%, we will double check. PLTIS, I mean, I'm hoping we even get the $900,000 to upgrade our system. But you also got Chris's responses about the limitation of PLTIS.
yeah,
It is only what's reported in, and the inventory, as far as we're concerned, it's accurate. But the difference is how the agencies report
Mhm.
and what they report, and then what they ultimately pay.
Yeah.
So,
Right. And that's where the NNK
yeah,
report came from.
Yeah.
Because they were at 79 million a year
Yeah.
to us,
right,
and we're getting paid 15.
yeah,
So uh, the difference between what is real and what
Yeah.
is what we're getting is just not adequate,
so, and Chair, I'm not disputing that. And I would like to see us spending our energy on making a recommendation that has a firm foundation.
Yeah.
To the ledge as to what should OHA really be getting paid? What are they
Right.
entitled to? I mean, clearly, as you said, they've recognized that,
Well, as
like,
soon as we go before them and tell them what we think is real before this committee
Yeah.
was formed, they argue, what is the inventory? What is that number based on?
yeah. So,
That's why
Wow.
we've been so heavy on inventory,
I did.
because they use that as
An
a
excuse,
basis.
yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I will stand next to you and I will tell them the inventory is accurate.
okay,
The different, what may be different is how are the different agencies, as NNK pointed out, is, is, is representing what they're transferring. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
here, airports is, I mean, DOT is accurately tracking what the revenues they're just not transferring them.
Yeah, well, that's a
But they're
different issue,
tracking.
but all I've been trying to do, I accept what you say. You say that it's, as far as DLNR is concerned, it's accurate and complete. Okay, but of course, you're accepting other people's information. So I'm just trying to find
Sure.
out, I'm just probing
Yeah, yeah,
your
no,
statement, and I'm not saying in any way that I'm disagreeing with you.
Okay.
All I'm saying is if I end up agreeing with you, which is likely, I want to be able to
Sure.
respond that it wasn't just because I knew Don
Yeah,
Chang
no.
or whatever, so I'm just trying to probe, because as the chair says, every time we go to the legislature, then that comes up. And of course, we have to go back and report to OHA, to the board, right? So,
I will stand with you
okay.
and I will stand in front of you and I will,
Okay.
but I'm also
All right,
looking
but I
at
think
h-
that,
how are we,
yeah,
picking and choosing, where are we getting the most, how are we being really efficient? I mean, I think as Chair talked about at the beginning, is that this is a hard legislative session. So if we
Yeah.
spent this past, if we
Yeah.
spent this year
yeah,
really honing down on looking at the N and K, what's the difference, going to all of the departments, what are you really reporting, looking at the definitions of what's the basis for what they're transferring, and trying to come up with some consistent metrics or criteria. That to me seems to be a,
Well, I think
Better.
there's a difference between N and K's analysis and the department's
yes,
analysis.
you're right, there
Like
is.
universities doesn't think that they need to pay us anything, because why? Because our Hawaiians are still paying tuition.
Mm,
So what is that based on?
no,
You know?
Yeah.
yep,
yeah,
no, you're right, and I think they separate that, right?
yeah.
So, I don't know, Everett, you probably know this better than all the rest of us. What do you think?
Oh, well, maybe if I could contribute a few things, maybe to this discussion about, a way forward.
Okay,
And I think it is, to your point, Director, it's kind of looking at, what is the information that should be provided by the agencies as a way to inform, what OHA should actually be receiving. And I think that's kind of been where OHA has put some of its past efforts, first in getting the agencies to just report as required under Act 178. And then once all the agencies were reporting, seeing if they were reporting accurately and completely. And that's where, the two financial reviews that OHA, contracted for, that's the basis for those reports. It's also that the agencies are supposed to be reporting all of the receipts generated from PLT lands sources, not just the ones that they believe OHA is entitled to, as has been the approach by UH. And then it's up to OHA, the legislature, executive branch to determine, what is actually OHA entitled to based on, historical past precedent, based on other considerations, right, like the airports, making up for that difference. But you cannot have those types of discussions until you come to, what are you and what amount are you trying to negotiate over. I don't think that requires a fully accurate. It maybe matters to OHA for other kind of longer term purposes. But if you're looking just at PLT receipts, right, and the amount that OHA receives each year, we have largely identified the major sources of those receipts. So, it's more just making sure that all the agencies are reporting those from those sources most accurately. And if there's a few parcels, scattered throughout that might not be under consideration unless they're generating significant receipts that we're for some reason not aware of, then probably, we don't have to get every single parcel nailed down. But if we can get that kind of baseline amount that's Act 178 was supposed to provide for, then it would give us the basis for negotiations.
Right.
In the NNK report, I wasn't around for the initial one by KMH, but for the NNK report, when we did go out to the agencies, one of the issues was, what authority did we have to collect this information, to get our contractors in to examine their books and look at, what amounts were actually being generated. And we got that pushback, not only from UH, but from other agencies as well. By and large, the other agencies did participate. That effort was supported by, members, from the AG's office, from
And BNF,
BNF.
yeah.
So, it's not like, there weren't people from the state side, executive branch side, kind of also supporting this effort, but it was still, at some points, a struggle to get that information.
Did a similar letter go out collectively from,
You saw
all
the
the-
letter we sent out?
It was it was
similar?
It was similar to kind of initiate, and then we had a number of kickoff meetings, with that involved both kind of the executive branch representatives as well as OHA representatives. When we started that data collection effort. But like I remember conversations with UH staff saying, what's the authority that you're having to gather this information? And basically we had it, that we were doing this effort that I think was supported by the executive branch, but it wasn't anything that we could point to say, oh, this law says that we need to do this, or this law directs you to cooperate. So that might be an area, to say that this is going to be, undertaking by the state, OHA, that there's some authority that's created to, have other agencies comply with this, reporting data collection effort.
Did you reference the act? That,
We did.
Okay, and for some
I
of them,
think
that
there's-
wasn't sufficient?
Well, obviously, they didn't want to pay more, right? So.
Right.
We
but
weren't even
that's
asking for
people-
payment, we were asking for information, right?
But they, most
I think most-
agencies came through. I think Lewis's point from the last meeting, which is that, we don't have a standardization in terms of how they keep their information or what their definitions are, and everything is a negative. But I think we did send out the letter that we all agreed upon,
Right.
and we did get back, well,
Few.
One. Hardly responses. We got back a lot of answers. I mean, not answers, but responses, but we didn't get a lot of answers. So I think that I would say we're probably up against that problem. Amber made a spreadsheet for us of
Okay, I didn't
What-
see that.
who responded and what. So, just one little more fact, which is after Act 329 was passed and the state and OHA had agreed that it didn't settle all issues,
Mhm.
and there was continued negotiations after 1990 when the act was passed. They did talk about parcels. No more, they didn't talk about any more money. They talked
Okay.
about parcels. And they talked about
Oh.
like Waikiki Yacht Club
Oh, the transfer,
to OHA.
so
yeah.
it would be, it
Yeah.
would be based, but would that be based upon a calculated
Right,
settlement amount?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they said, we're gonna settle on this amount because at that point in time, the interest was running. So they wanted to stop the interest running. So they said, we'll settle on this amount, and we'll set this aside to discuss further.
Yeah.
And we're reporting to everybody that we're looking at these parcels, one of which was the Waikiki Yacht Club. And there were a few other parcels, but just, but of course, the members of the Waikiki Yacht Club didn't like
I'm sure
that
they
idea.
didn't, I'm sure they didn't.
So that became controversial.
Yeah, I'm
too,
sure
but
that-
Just
I'm sure they did.
FYI, okay?
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
probably why, even Kaka'ako I'm sure people who were there already probably didn't like that. But, just to show that there's other ways,
Mhm, mhm.
clearly other ways to pay besides
But
money. right?
it's all based upon
Yeah.
a settlement, an agreed settlement amount that's based upon an agreed set of criteria, or what's the basis for that total amount that's due?
Well, that's why people keep saying, what's the inventory, and, is the inventory accurate and complete? And why they also say,
We could spend the next 10 years doing that and it's not
I'm
gonna get us
just-
closer. So I mean.
I'm just saying,
trying to move
I'm just
on.
trying to find out, I think knowing that there's just 2 parcels. Okay, I have no basis to challenge that. Okay, I think that's a gold nugget,
Okay.
to
well,
show that
I mean,
what was in the
and-
1979 auditor's
Yeah.
report has
And-
been
yeah.
solved.
Well,
however which
we're
way.
open. If anybody wants to come in,
Yeah.
but these are the 2
And I
parcels
think
that
that's a good
Mahoy
thing that
came
we
up with.
should say we found, that DLNR are found, or it was reported to us that DLNR is open to any corrections and
Right.
anybody, and
Right.
welcomes
Right.
criticism of any parcel that's been identified.
And,
Yeah,
and then you saw
so I think,
Chris's comments about,
Yeah.
about what the PLTIS
Yeah.
is and isn't.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it won't necessarily solve a lot of the
yeah,
issues that you're raising, but it is nonetheless the vehicle that we use
yeah.
and most other agencies
right.
use.
But I think that would, maybe you want to, change your website just a little bit to
Oh,
include
Oh.
whatever his explanations are, because, I'm not the only person who's looked at that. Okay, and, then, concerns were raised. So, might be helpful to do that, but,
yeah.
so I know the meeting is kind of short
Mhm.
today because there's other people that want to talk to Louis. So, so maybe what we could do is everybody take a look at the letter that we did send out and the answers that we did get from the spreadsheet. And for the next meeting, maybe we could concentrate on follow-up for that. So we could then we know that we've got complete and accurate numbers to the extent that we can get them.
I mean, in my mind, that is a basis to say that there's not consensus in the way that everybody's reporting.
Yeah,
And I mean, I kind of go back and look at the NNK report, which tried to use a criteria in determining what is OHA actually entitled to based upon a set of criteria. I mean, I think that would be really helpful. I'm not sure if we sending another letter to these agencies is going to make a difference versus we come up with some criteria upon which they should be reporting.
maybe we could. I think that Everett's raised the issue, the real bottom line issue for communicating with the agencies, which is unless they know they have to do it. They're just like DLNR, right? Department of Ag, they're like, well, it's our duty to, provide water. It's our duty to lease land for ag. We want sustainability. We want our own food. And of course, we agree with all of
Yeah.
that. So they're like, are they going to take, they don't want us to take any of their money, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough money to do what they need to do. So I don't know if we need some kind of support somehow from the AG's office or from the governor, or
I mean,
I don't know. I mean, last time we had BNF and the AG's office, and we had a big meeting with all the
Okay.
agencies. Okay, well, maybe we don't have time to do that right now, but maybe we could have, I don't know, some kind of
Yeah.
input. So I think that would be up to you guys, you and Louis, as to how we would proceed further on that.
yeah.
Karen and I can huddle together along with Ryan or
Yeah,
Karen, and then we can coordinate.
okay, that would be great. So maybe you could take a look at what we did get in response. And
Yeah,
I think that's basically the problem, is that they didn't want to respond, of course. I'm
yeah.
not blaming anybody for that.
And I suspect, I mean, this is just this is probably not the best time of the year to be sending
Yes,
this. I
yeah,
mean,
Right.
they're like, the priority of things, the legislature, is sort of,
Yeah,
their
yeah.
budget is kind of the top and they're like, oh, yeah, we got to, so, I mean, maybe we should huddle and maybe what we'll do, so, yeah, Ryan, Lewis and I can huddle from the state side.
yeah,
And then
Is Ryan still on the committee?
Yes.
Okay, then
Yes,
that would
yes,
make
yes.
three. That makes
Yes,
three.
That
So
he is still actually, because what I
just for
came to realize,
sunshine purposes.
yeah, he,
Yeah.
the
They wouldn't
gov-
let him, we didn't want to let him go
Well, we were
anyways.
appointed by, not necessarily by position, but Ryan was appointed
Yeah,
as Ryan
Yeah.
Kanaka Ole with
Yeah.
his expertise,
Right,
Yeah.
by the
not the
governor.
fact that he was the AG's representative, but it was
Okay.
more his expertise. So as
Yeah.
much as I wanted to say, okay,
Yeah.
just one representative from DLNR, it appears that Ryan was specifically appointed. So
yeah.
I could then step down and he could say, he could
No,
represent the
because
department.
you are in the decision-making position.
Well, I do, I will tell you, I'm at the point, it's sort of in my life too, fish or cut bait. Let's find a solution to this. I
Yeah.
think there are people, I don't know if you're going to get a better group
Yeah.
of working group
Right.
members than
Yeah.
the ones that you've got here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that this is it. This is people who have a genuine interest in trying to find a solution to this challenging issue once and for all. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but I think you've got a group that's motivated
Yes, yes.
and willing.
And we appreciate the members on the state side. And as well as,
Yes.
Oh, yes.
you know, we work together on OHA side
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. No, I mean, we could always bring in, I'm trying to think of Louis, who else could we bring in here to kind of spice up the group? But I do think, no, I mean, this is a
I
good
think
group
this
of
is a
people.
pretty
Yeah,
spicy.
yeah,
Go
well,
for it.
I mean, we could bring somebody in here who's just a naysayer, but I think this is a motivated group.
Yes,
I think we share
yes.
many of your concerns and we're trying to find a path forward.
Yes.
So, okay, Louis, you, me and Ryan will huddle prior to the next meeting.
And get everybody, especially our peers in the other departments, to really kind of align together so that we're answering the questions and responding
And
correctly.
we may have to give them an extension of time, as I do not think that this is going to happen during the,
Yeah, that's okay.
yeah, and then if we can, in the meantime, talk about strategies, just
Yeah.
what do we do when we get this? What do we do about, because so much, in my mind, a lot of this is recommendations that we make to the ledge that are policy issues.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Okay.
Ryan?
Oh, Ryan, I see.
Sorry, and I know Lewis has to cut out soon too for the 9:30. I'm gonna be logging off so I can head down to the WAM briefing.
Okay. All
So
right.
I apologize, Chair and fellow members. I gotta walk over now. So
Okay, we're losing quorum.
Okay, all right, aloha.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
Is
you.
there, are we
Thank
losing
you.
quorum? There's 1, 2, 3. Everett, are you on the group?
No, so there's only 3 of us.
okay.
Well, I know that the information, as long as there's no decision making, right? You can do info briefing. Is that how it works? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Anyway.
we can talk story
Yeah,
until
yeah, yeah.
9:45.
Take care.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hey,
Louis. Get some
represent us
sleep.
well now.
I
Don't
try.
give it any more money, Ryan. Don't give up any more money to Lewis. Stand firm, stand firm. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
So Sherry, can we
Oh.
move on one the more discussion?
Okay,
While we have Dawn?
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
And if Dawn, you don't want to, if it's something you
No,
don't
no,
want
no,
to.
no,
Okay, go ahead.
I have another meeting after, but I can stay
All
till
right.
9:45,
Okay,
Okay.
so.
what's next?
Discussion regarding next steps after review of responses to PLT WG letter to state agencies regarding the reporting made and supporting documentation available to finalize. Shall we skip that based on their huddle?
Well, I think we already, yes.
Yeah, so we'll come back next time, okay?
Report and discuss status of legislation submitted to seek appropriation to hire qualified professionals to determine accuracy and completeness of current state agencies' reporting of income and proceeds. That's also part of the huddle, right?
And I have a
I
hunch
think that
we're not gonna get
we
money.
know that,
Unlikely to get funding.
I think that we know we're very unlikely.
Yeah.
I mean, Wham hasn't
Yeah.
even scheduled a hearing. It did pass out on Hawaiian
Yeah.
Affairs.
But if you do, and OHA can think about it, but to support our budget request for the 900,000, I don't even know, that may be on the chopping block
It
too.
is
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. Oh, it
Yeah.
is.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we heard we're both on the
Oh,
chopping.
Yeah.
We're
But
both
that
on the
doesn't mean we're
chopping block.
chopped.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, I mean,
okay. We'll,
yeah.
we'll talk about
okay,
that further.
okay, okay,
Okay, we can talk about
okay.
DLNR's request to
Yeah,
support their
okay.
$900,000 further.
You want to
Okay.
discuss that?
Not
No, yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
talking about OHA talking. We'll huddle,
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
you can
okay.
huddle with
you
it.
and me. Okay, all right,
Okay,
next.
okay.
Further discussions and comments regarding the Public Land Trust Information System. The Department of Land and Natural Resources reports to the legislature. I think this is part of the huddle.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you got Chris's responses.
yes, I
Okay.
got Chris's responses. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
DLNR clarification of determination of parcels that are partially ceded lands and extent of inclusion of submerged lands in PLTIS.
And we did get that answer as well from
Okay.
DLNR. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Discussion regarding requests to the counties and federal government for information relating to the inventory and identification of ceded lands and public land trust lands, including submerged lands under their jurisdiction, and accounting of the income and proceeds derived therefrom.
I would just request that we defer that until we have
Okay,
Lewis and
All right.
Ryan broader discussion. And then we
Yeah.
take care of everything else in the front part of the agenda, which is in my mind, much more of a priority.
okay,
And then once we've got a system,
all right.
because I think this is going to be a lot more challenging, counties and federal
So-
government.
I just have to caution you
Okay.
that in your huddle,
Yeah.
you cannot have more than 2 members
You're
of our
right.
working
You're
group.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Mhm.
that's a good, that's,
yeah,
I
Yeah,
know.
And sorry, even to the extent that we're having kind of a continuing
Oh,
discussion on
yeah,
board
okay.
matters.
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
kind of
okay.
Yeah.
deliberation, I mean, it's more just receiving
Sure,
information, so if we're
sure,
reporting
okay.
back, say, on the status of a
Oh,
bill.
okay,
I
okay.
mean, that can still be accepted by
Yeah.
the members of the working
Okay.
group.
Okay.
But even, deliberations short of decision-making still
Ah,
need to
okay.
be
Okay.
held until, I mean, we have a full
Okay.
quorum of the working group.
Thank you for
Okay.
So if there's any
reminding us.
Okay.
additional information, I mean, I can still, if there's anything that's, clarifying, the information that I'm presenting on the airports or even the NNK report, we can cover that and you can kind of receive that information, but it just has to be
Oh,
limited to
okay,
further.
okay.
Maybe
further
what we could do
deliberations.
is take the pages in the NNK report relating to the airports and Xerox those off separately and circulate them for the next meeting, put them in the folder for the next meeting.
Okay,
How would that be? That would
Okay,
give you
that-
more
that would be
information about
helpful.
how that's
Thank you.
handled.
thank you. And then I know that for item number 3, you only receive responses from DOA, Public Safety, DHHL, and Kirk. Did you receive any other response, Amber?
Yes.
One more? There was a 5th one.
We received from, who's in charge of the Kwanimoku building?
DAGs.
DAGs. So we
DAGs.
received
Okay,
a
that was-
response from
okay,
DAGs.
DAGs. Okay, okay. But those are the only 5, right?
Yeah, and other departments that you folks were the smaller attached agencies.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. The commissions, yeah. Who didn't hold property.
Right.
Okay.
Everybody who didn't respond.
Yeah.
Right, leave us out of it. Cross us off the list.
Okay, and DOA essentially just confirm they're at what they reported to DLNR as their annual report. Okay, that's what I thought.
So
Okay.
these are
Yeah.
the corrections and rehabilitation, the taxation office and the agriculture.
Oh, okay,
And then everyone else was attached to the larger,
okay. The departments,
departments.
okay, okay.
And also the Department of Health
Oh,
responded.
okay, okay.
So Everett, how does the University of Hawaii figures out there, 20% to us. And majorly talking about the telescopes that report income on Mauna Kea.
I haven't looked at that in a little bit, so I'd have to go back and see how they. I haven't looked at the more recent Act 178 report to see what they're reporting. I mean, I can look at it now if you'd like, just to see, what they're
So is
reporting and
OHA,
transferring.
is OHA getting anything from Mauna Kea? I recall.
I thought there were, well, let me see, I haven't looked
I
at
think
it.
from the
that it does
commercial-
Get the 20 cents.
The 20,
from-
and then you get revenue from
from
the
the-
commercial operators,
right,
right? But
yeah.
you don't, I don't believe there's any reporting from the observatories. Maybe you might get
Themselves.
some revenue from Halepohaku, any revenues that's generated, but I don't, because I don't know whether any of the observatories, they, there's a financial accounting. I don't know if there's a quantification of the viewing time into dollars. So that's my understanding of how the observatories, their transactions are viewing time.
Right, and I think one of our staff members from the Big Island discovered the millions of dollars that was utilized up there.
Oh,
She found
that
records.
they received?
Well, that's what it looked like.
Oh,
I didn't see
okay.
it myself, but
Well, there's the viewing time for UH. Okay, that is not, there's no cash transaction for the viewing time for UH, but I believe if Yale wants to look in the telescopes or
Mhm.
Caltech, I believe that they pay.
Okay,
I'm
and
pretty
I'm
sure.
sorry,
Okay,
I don't know what their
Okay.
agreements are.
and I think, like it's millions of dollars for
millions.
just a few
Oh.
hours because, you can see back to, well, not all the way to the beginning of time, but almost with the
Yeah,
telescopes that are
I-
already
I
there.
believe that.
Mhm.
I mean, the TMT is supposed to see all the way back to the beginning of time.
Yeah, the great, what did they call it? Yeah,
Yeah,
I-
so,
yeah,
but, okay, so,
yeah.
I mean, it's the crown jewel, the Hope Diamond of the telescopes in the whole world. It's the best place to
If it
go.
ever gets built, but yeah,
Well, I'm not talking about that one. I'm just talking
Oh.
about the ones that already exist.
yeah, I don't, okay, you may know more than I do.
That's gonna be a conversation by itself.
All
the
right,
Mauna Kea.
all right,
But I just kind of wanted to prepare Everett,
Okay.
to
okay,
and you folks, to-
Mhm.
let's look at it.
all right,
Because not only to OHA, but to the state.
Mm,
right. So, well,
How,
this is
how
always,
is that money working out? $1 to DLNR? I don't think so.
Well,
Not with
see,
the
we're
money
gonna,
they
we're gonna
make.
help you.
Well, what we don't get any money from them. So my recollection is the way that this occurs is under the lease. We're all in, is this in the public, Amber?
Yeah,
It's live. So
Yeah.
my understanding is that under the lease, there are conditions and includes the maintenance. So UH, this, whatever that, that, not the authority, but the other organization, they're the ones that have to maintain. And so they collect fees from all the observatories for maintenance. So I don't believe that they provide DLNR any revenue. Not that I'm aware of.
well, university
Other-
claims they don't have money, so
Oh,
where's all that revenue going? I mean, that's
Good
not fair
question.
to the state of Hawaii.
That's a
And
good
the
question.
Native Hawaiians,
Mm.
so we need to kind of look
Mm.
into it.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
yeah, I think we can close.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay. So yeah, I don't think there's any further discussion.
Yeah, so let's,
I move to adjourn.
thank you.
Okay.
Well, we're adjourned anyways because we lost the
Yeah,
forum.
but we gotta close the meeting
Yeah,
down.
Okay,
Okay, it's been moved and
Seconded.
seconded by
Chair Chang,
Don
Don
Chang.
Chang.
Mhm. All in favor?
I
I
Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
thank you, Chair.